Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to The Divine Style. I'm your host, Gerlinda, a psychic medium, personal stylist, and self love coach. And today I have a very special guest talking about a very awesome topic. Let's dive right in. Welcome, Nick. I'm so excited to have you on today's episode of the Divine Style podcast. Please start by telling me a little bit more about what you do and then we'll get into what led you there. So what is it that your current focus is on?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Gerlinda. Thanks for having me on. So my current focus is on intuitively communicating with animals. So a lot of people, and we were just talking about this before, right before we started to record, a lot of people just go around talking to their animals. And I used to do that and I still do. I'm always working under the assumption that they understand everything I'm saying, they're paying attention to and understanding everything I'm saying. And I know that's wrong. However, to say they're not paying attention and they're not understanding anything, that is 100% always wrong. The other one is way more right than wrong, right? So that's my mindset these days. So think about the things you're saying when you say things to your animals. Like some folks are just like, "I love my cat," right? "I love you over there," and some folks are like, "Ah, dumb dog," right? Like those two things, they land, whether you think they do or not. I'm telling you, they land, right? And someone knows, and they have feelings about it. One animal communication lesson 101.
I definitely agree with everything you've just said because animals are sensitive to our energy and words hold energy. So it's not surprising that they're going to understand you on some level with what you're saying. It's just so fascinating, animal communication. How did you get started?
My wife and I went to a psychic fair here in Carlsbad, California, where we live, and we walked around the floor once and didn't see anyone. And then we decided to approach the floor from the opposite perspective. And right in front of us was this psychic medium. Her name is Medium Adelita. And I'd never been to a medium before. Psychics, yes, medium, no, no. And like it was just not part of what I did. I was skeptical, at least skeptical, right? I'm just gonna go and be a good support for my wife. I think this person's gonna be good for my wife. So I'll play along and I sit down. And within like 30, 60 seconds, she starts by drawing this heart and she says, "This is either a former romantic relationship or it's an animal." An animal. She circles animal. And I'm like, what the shit is going on here? Like what's happening? And the message is you did too much. And now I'm like bawling. I'm just like breaking down. And my wife's over on the left-hand side. I look at her and she's like, what is going on? I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now. What happened was it was Henry, my cat Henry, who lived to be 22. The last 2 years of his life were spent going back and forth to the vet, checking blood work, food, like all the things we need to do to try to make a 22-year-old little cat body more comfortable, right? So the message of you did too much was spot on. As I'm catching up to what is actually happening and understanding that I'm having a conversation with my dead cat through this woman, she's continuing, and she's doing her thing. And she says, my guides, they're now showing me Dr. Doolittle. They're showing me that you can talk to animals and it's going to be easy for you. And I thought, yeah, I mean, there was a bunch of emotions going on, but the truth of that statement landed pretty darn hard. Like that's 100% true. Yeah. And so I went home and I did my normal meditation and tried to tune into my living cat Chucky. And suddenly I see this bright light. It's the type that you would read about that's associated with like spirit guides, angels, higher level beings, something like that, right? And I'm like, nope, not my cat. He shits in a box. Sometimes he shits on the floor. This is not my cat. Mm-mm. And so I go back to Adelaide and I said, easy, this isn't working, right? Forget easy. And her response was, well, you're expecting things to show up in a very specific way. That is not how this works. Just be open to the information you get. What you get is what you get. Okay, fair enough. Sounds simple enough anyway, right? And then I bought a bunch of animal communication books. I had no idea there were so many out there. And I bought a couple of sessions with folks who do this, who are animal communicators. I'm trying to learn anything about this, right? And as I'm about to go to a meeting just like this on Zoom, I get this quick flash. I stand up for the dining room table and I get this quick flash. And it's of the Return of the Jedi. It's a scene of the ghosts of Obi-Wan and Yoda. And I realize I'm being shown a student-teacher relationship. And I know that I'm the student and Chucky is the teacher. Can you imagine? Right? and and then I go sit in front of the psychic, the intuitive, what do we want to call the entire category? Animal communicator. And she goes, "Do you know who he is to you?" And I was like, "Yeah, he just showed me." And now we're talking about that for the next 30 minutes. Right. So that's how it showed up, how this version of things showed up. And for about 6 months, it was showing up for me. The random, the dolphin in Mexico said some things to me, and just a little energy exchange with the dog at Home Depot. Coyote showing up in the middle of the night, like things would just start to show up. Horses, amazing experience with horses. I went on to Nextdoor, which is this app in the States. It's like Facebook, but instead of your family and friends disagreeing about a bunch of things, it's your neighbors disagreeing about a bunch of things on Nextdoor. And I posted, I said, "Hi, my name is Nick Musica. I'm an animal communicator. That means I psychically talk to animals, free 15 minutes. And I'm capturing everyone's information in a Google Doc. So you can see the spreadsheet. You can see when someone submits, right? And I'm looking at the comments and like, man, it's like people are like, it's amazing. Is this person serious? Like, and I'm seeing this battle between the two sides. I'm going, oh man, this is strange. But then it normalizes out, which was really cool. Like you don't have to step in; it just sort of does its own thing. And I'm looking at my form, and the first row fills in the woman's first name or last name, the name of the animal, age of the animal, breed, and I feel her come through. I feel the intention, and I'm like, this is definitely going to work. So my process is I talk to the animal on day one, and then day two, I talk to the human and debrief. So I talk to the animal like on a Wednesday, and then I talk to the woman on Friday, the human. And at the end of whatever, 15, 20 minutes, she says, "So the reason why I wanted to talk with you is because my former animal communicator passed." When people show up with their intention to connect to the animal, like easy cheesy. When people show up in the name of connecting with their animal, but it's, "I want to talk to you about this thing because I'm curious about it for me," right? Like that type of thing. I'm curious about the whole psychic thing. Like there's no intention to connect, and that just doesn't work for me. And the conversation is, it's really muddy at first, and then eventually the road clears up, and you're like, "Oh, well, that explains a bunch of things. Got it. Well, now that's the conversation we should be having. So let's have that conversation."
This is just awesome because when I think about our pets, and I know that uh, people, they love them like they're their
Yeah,
children, and they do have such special bonds. And I was speaking with one of my good friends this morning, and she lost her dog. And as a psychic medium, I
mhm,
bring through pets at times. So
yeah,
similar probably to what happened when you went to the psychic medium, and her beautiful dog came through and showed me his favorite toy that he used to play with, his favorite blanket, which was like this lamb's wool, all beautiful things. It was really confirmation for her that that he
yeah,
was okay. And what I found really fascinating is that when I was tuning into that, to dogs, or that dog in particular, like the communication style was, it was similar to a human, but it still had dog-like features, like the favorite things. Do you find that?
yeah. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, so sometimes it's like there's a woman I talk to, and sometimes I'll get like this initial impression, and so I started the debriefing with, "Your animal sort of showed up with like really fast, moving around really fast, but also like all over the place. It was slow. It was I'm sorry, it was slow and all over the place. That's how I described it." And she's like, "Yeah, that's my special needs dog." Oh, okay. Like that's how she thought about it, right? Because the dog, however that phrase manifested with the behavior, she was on it. And then this dog in particular was just showing me. I'm trying to remember, like the backyard. Do you have a backyard that you guys go in? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was just like random, like your dog likes to run around, which seems like an obvious thing, right? But I'm like, is he good at it? Because he thinks he's really good at it. Like there's this very serious face and dirt kicking up in the back, and she's like, "Oh, he's not really all that good at it." I'm like, "Well, he thinks he is." Um, and then at the end, and this took me a little while to get used to. Like you hear something, you see something, and you're just like, "This is just off the wall." Like really? Like I okay, here we go. And so I said popcorn, and she goes, No, I don't eat popcorn." Okay. Wheel of Fortune. Okay, so it's a just basic game show at night, and I go Wheel of Fortune, and then there's silence for about 2 seconds. And then she starts dying laughing. She says, we watch it every night together. And as a matter of fact, a couple weeks ago, I did have popcorn. I bet he had some. Right. So that was like all very me and my good time with the human. And then there's other folks who show up, like a different woman showed up, and I asked people for 3 questions. Give me 3 questions. I'll ask the questions. No guarantee they're going to answer it, but my obligation is to answer it or to ask it. And she's like, my little chihuahua is biting people and tell them to stop. Doesn't quite work that way, but okay, I get the drift. I'm picking up what you're laying down. And so I tune into the little chihuahua, and the dog's like, ask her about her job. The first thing, ask her about her job. And I'm like, well, why am I asking her about her job? Because that's what has to change. Oh shit. Okay. So I get a lot on the line with her, and she goes, so did you talk to my dog? Mm-hmm. Did you tell him to stop biting people? No. What do you do for a living? Well, I'm out of work right now. You're not out of work. What do you do? I'm a private driver. Uber, limousines? Yeah, something like that. How's that working out? Well, I have spinal issues, and my doctor says I shouldn't do this because after an hour or two of sitting in the chair driving around, I'm all kinds of busted up, and my back is very aggravating. Well, here's what your dog said. And now the entire time is spent around her and her dog. And what people don't get typically is specifically with the living dogs. So the ones that passed, it's different. They feel a little different. Um, and what they have to share is just different. It's more of that I want everything to be okay type of thing, right? Versus here's the lesson. And sometimes it's like here was the lesson that we were learning together. But with the living animals, typically the formula is someone comes to me and says, 3D problem. Can you please talk to my animal? And I go, yes, sure. That was the promise to talk to your animal. Uh, and then it's a role reversal, right? I'm doing this thing in the 3D world because there's a lesson that I'm teaching you. And typically it comes through with like mirroring or modeling behavior. Sometimes it's very clear, right? With something else. It could just be the message, but like even in the case of the woman where the dog was biting people, right? Is the dog angry? No. The dog is just reflecting the behaviors of the woman who's very unsatisfied with this job. And we didn't have the time to go into it, but I'm sure years of other unsatisfaction, dissatisfaction with her job because her dog was biting people for years, right? So the conversation was, why are you spending your time doing the thing that doesn't jazz you up when there's choices, there's things we should be doing, right? And sometimes it's just hard. It's hard to do the right thing. And in this case, when I was chatting with her, I got this flash of roses. I'm like, what do you do with roses? What is it? And she's like, well, I paint vases with roses and then people put flowers in them. I'm like, well, so you can see like what's happening here. One thing is very unsatisfactory. And this other thing, like you lit up when we talked about this. Like this is the conversation we should be having. And so that's the basic formula as typically as things show up. 3D problem turns into the lesson. We talk about what that means for the human.
That's really cool. And I love what you said about we teach them and they teach us. And that was one of the things that my friend had said. So she got a new puppy after her last doggy died. And this puppy like literally mimics her, exactly what you said. Like if she gets a sore ankle, it'll walk around with a sore ankle. And I think what's really interesting is when we see this happen to our pets, and I mean, even like if I've had a bad day and my
Mm-hmm.
cat, she'll curl up close, they
Yeah.
absorb that energy. Like when we talk about being empaths, our animals are empaths. And I think one of the questions that my friend brought up, and she was like, well, how can we stop that? Can we stop putting stuff on our pets when, we don't really mean to or want to?
If we were to think about energy as a channel and higher vibrations up here and lower vibrations down here and more pleasant emotions up here and less down here, right? Happiness, joy, fun, anger, resentment, things like so let's go up there. And that's the answer, right? It's not like flip the switch, like have them not take these things on. It's well, we have a responsibility for our own energy and how we carry ourselves. So if you're going to be pissy pants, guess what's going to happen? If you're going to be angry, guess what's going to happen, right? Well, I don't want my dog mirroring those things. I have a suggestion. Don't be those things. Be this other thing, right? Because the dog will mirror it. So so maybe that's the broad lesson. Like, go up there. But where's the switch? You're the switch. You get to be the switch. Isn't that fun?
I think it's the same when we have children, isn't it? We want to be mindful of the energy that we are towards our kids and things like that because they absorb, they're affected, they're very open.
100%.
So when it comes to our pets, what are some ways that we can tune in more, listen more to be able to, start that communication process?
There's three ways that we can talk about. One, and so it goes from more 3D to less 3D, less intuitive to more intuitive, right? So one is just our daily interactions with our animals. We should, when we're saying something like for example, Chucky, who loves to sit on the piano, and maybe there's a lesson in there about someone in the house, my wife specifically, to play the piano more, right? Maybe there could be that lesson, but like he's on the piano, and so when you say to him in an irritated tone, "Get off the piano," he doesn't like how that feels, and he sees piano, and he sits there and stares at you, and you're like, "What's your problem, dude? Get off the piano." I'm confused. But if you were to say, "Get on the couch," and if like even that feels different just saying it, right? Getting on the couch, right? It's a positive tone. Your words match what you're thinking, and there's no confusion there. So say it, feel it, and see it is the formula. Number two is what they're communicating to us, right? We see this little furry thing running around doing what furry things do, and we go, "That's adorable. Look at him doing a thing," right? Like my cat every night, he'll be at the top of the stairs crying. He'll be at the bottom of the stairs waiting to play. And you could look at him and go, "Man, your cat, like he is just forever young and just loves to play." Maybe. I also have a bad relationship with the computer. I will grind for too long. I don't give myself that play time that I should have. That's a balance that where I should be doing those things, right? Going back to that vibration. I will grind through the day sometimes and that doesn't feel good to me and it doesn't feel good to him because they can read us like we're a little energetic book, right? So he picks up on it and his lesson is, dude, break away from your garbage and go play every night. So instead of looking at the cat or dog or whatever it is, and you just take it at face value, give it a second thought. What's there for me to learn from that behavior? What are they trying to teach me? Come downstairs and play. Like, is there real like, do you really need to scroll through that Instagram feed one more time? Like, is that really important? Did you get a comment on your shit? Like, who cares? Come and play. Come and play now. So seeing their behavior that they're exhibiting and assuming, let's work with assumptions, assuming there's a lesson in there and see what it's about. Imagine what it's about. Assume they're communicating something to you.
I love that. I love that looking and thinking, what are you really trying
Yeah.
to tell me? That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So number three is going to be, it's going to be more of a higher self to higher self conversation, right? We covered me and my 3D, them and their 3D. And this is purely higher self to higher self. Right? A lot of people are like, "I don't understand what you just said." Well, so we have a higher self. We'll call it consciousness, right? That's the phrase that's or the word that's used. And the biggest mistake we all make, a lot of people make, is consciousness begins and ends with human beings. And it just doesn't. It doesn't. And when someone says you talk to animals, yeah, I do. In the 3D, I go, "Are you hungry? You want a thing?" Like what? Yes, I do. But then I'm talking to their consciousness with my consciousness. And that's the thing that people pay me for. Um, and that's a very, very magical thing. It's a magical thing when you hear another living being uh, communicate something to you, or another living being show you something, or have you feel something. I mean, it's a very trippy, interesting experience every time. And so people can learn to be in tune with, we'll call it nature, right? And we sort of go, "Oh, I need to get into nature." Or like I need to get out there. I need to go surf. I need to go for a hike. I need to get lost in the woods, whatever. I need to go into nature. We look at nature as this bubble over here, this big bubble, and we're this little bubble over here. Well, that's not true. There's a big bubble called nature, and within that bubble, there's us, and there's the trees, and there's the cats, and there's the dogs, and all the other things that have any type of life force around it, including the rivers and the grass and all the things, right? And so you can communicate with all of those things this way that we're talking about, right? Some people are a little like, but I really want to talk to my animal. That's not going to work. Like that's not going to work. The more you want to do it, the less it's going to happen. You may have a better connection with the tree. You may have a better connection with the grass or whatever because you're not emotionally wound up about it. So if you can relax and just let that information rip on through, and it's as simple. It's so simple, and that's what makes it hard. Because like it can't be that simple, but it is that simple. And once you find it, you're like, holy shit, it is that simple. And then the challenge, at least for me, is quiet that monkey mind and let it be that simple. And that takes practice. The quieting, the commitment, um, the looking at things in the world and not thinking that it's something weird and coincidences. People get a phone call, they get a text, they go, "Oh my God, I was just thinking about you." No, it's not a coincidence. There are no such things as coincidences. So, as much as we can see the world through the lens of a miracle, Einstein has a great quote. It's like you can look at every day as if nothing is a miracle, or you can live every day like everything is a miracle. Like you get to choose, right? View through the lens of everything is a coincidence or nothing's a coincidence. You can't do anything with weird. You can't do anything with coincidence. You can do something with meaning and purpose and synergies. That you can start to build something off of that. And that's super cool once those things start to show up because you can't look away after that. They're just in your face all the time.
Yeah, and then you really feel like you're in flow. That is so, I just think it's really awesome
Yes.
to hear from someone that's helping the world in such an awesome way through people's pets. Like I love this. I just think it's such an amazing way to tune, like to use your psychic ability and what's come up for you and how this is just manifested as just the most beautiful natural gift for you.
I went back to Adelita at some point because prior and like past animals started to show up. I'm like, this is not my thing. Like I need a little bit, and it was really easy. She's just like, look, animals, like animals are your thing. I was like, oh, that easy? She's like, that easy. Okay. And I'm like, well, how far does this non-human communication go? And she's like, anything with a life force. I was like, well, that explains a couple things. Yeah. Okay.
It is true. Like I remember when I've done like even with my mediumship training, it's sort of like they're spirits, but they were people. Like it's not like
Yeah.
then just because they're not physical doesn't mean they're still not there. So it's awesome to be able to do both, that you can tune in both to living and animals that are past as well now too, because it provides so much
Yeah.
comfort for people to know that they're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And me too. I mean, I was the little kid who lost the cat. And by little kid, I mean like in my 30s.
I know what you mean. I don't think it actually matters how old you are when you lose a pet. I mean, I can remember all of the pets that I've lost throughout my lifetime. And I say that like there was a whole heap. There wasn't. It was mainly, cats from when I was little and mice. And even my children, we lost a bird. And it's so hard. And I love that there is this opportunity to provide comfort in those times of loss.
Oh, it's awful. Oh man, it's a loss. It's a loss, right? And so I'm like, do animals have souls? Like, and like wondering that, and there's a difference between reading something about it and it says yes versus like really experiencing it. You're like, oh, this changes everything. This changes everything. So for people who have lost an animal, I hope this is comforting. But here's how I interpret it is this life that we're living is a stop on the train line. What we don't realize is that there's another stop over there. And we're going there too. But the animals are like, this is no big deal. Like I did my time here. I'm now over there. Like this isn't hard. This isn't hard. We make it really hard though.
We do make it much harder than it needs to be. And one thing I've learned about our pets is that they are our soul family. And this isn't the end, like you said, and we will get to meet them again. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. Can you please let everybody know how they can find you if they want to work with you? And I will put all of your details in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. You can go to a half bake Instagram account. at My Cat Schooled Me, or a more fully baked version of a website at My Cat Schooled Me, where you can set up a session. Uh, and if you're interested in learning more about how to do this yourself, that's cool too. If you want me to talk to your animal, that's cool. Or you can set up a session to learn how to do this for yourself. Dealer's choice.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of The Divine Style. I hope it's provided you some comfort. If you have lost a person or a pet, I've channeled a beautiful little guide called The Spirit of Grief, which you can download at gerlindastella.com. And if you'd like any more information about my services, you can visit gerlinda.com.au.